I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid now.
Shane Hall and Kris Jones here with UrbanLink Magazine podcast, and we are with Kris Gethin.
You got it right.
Did I get it right?
Gethin, yeah.
We nailed it.
Yeah, I think so. You got it.
The man who is exceptionally talented in tons of areas, entrepreneur, crazy ass journey. Dude, I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you very much. I've never had that kind of intro from you before, so I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, it's awesome diving into all the subjects of your life, right? What do you think's the most powerful area of your life that impacts you, that kind of tells your story? Because I know you're a man of many hats.
That tells my story. Wow, good question. Well, there's definitely consistency within it without distraction. I try not to allow myself to get distracted, because if I get distracted, I start to think. And when I say if I think too much, it makes me think too much. So I like to have constant workflow to keep me kind of grounded. And it started from a very young age, growing up on a farm, very hard work ethic. You know, if you didn't work on the farm, you didn't have food to eat. Basically, you know, you had to make sure you feed the animals because they're going to feed you later.
Yeah. And where was this farm?
Oh, this was in Wales. Yeah,
Okay.
the weird accent comes from Wales.
Because we grew up down the street, Idaho. So we're on the farm in Idaho.
Yeah.
So Wales. Okay, so you're in Wales and you're doing the farm thing. You know, what inspired you to think bigger past that?
There was a couple of things, actually. It was like we didn't have much money growing up on a farm. And my father bought the book from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he started applying. You know, a lot of people are students of learning. They're not students of application. He's application. So he thought, okay, I'm going to buy a cottage and do it up. It needed renovating. And I don't know how, you know, some people can just build stuff. That's my dad. He can just build stuff. Got a car's broken down, I'll fix the car. And so I remember at a very, very young age helping him with the renovations of this cottage. And then he took out a mortgage on another property, on that property. And then all of a sudden he had like 50 properties.
Really? He literally followed Kiyosaki's
He followed it
path
to the T.
by the book. No pun intended.
Yeah, by the book. You got it. So that was part of the inspiration for sure, you know, to see bigger what could be done. And, you know, learning from him on how you can obviously get out of the rat race and utilize other people's money in order to facilitate your own to a certain degree, you know, even though it wasn't really all about money back then. But, you know, it's funny, whenever we go to a restaurant or something now, he'll say, no, I'm paying. I'm like, no, I'll pay. And he'll say, well, no, this is so-and-so's money from street so-and-so, you know, from one of his tenants. And that's how he sees his money. It's not his, it's someone else's that is paying him. You know?
It's cool that that's the root of your path, because you're this entrepreneur, like I said, that wears many hats. You know, same with Kris. Yeah. It's interesting how eclectic your life is. You're really a creative. You know, when I speak to you, we dive into business, but even earlier when we were talking about how you're talking about the science and health is so aligned with your business world.
Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. So we've kind of jumped around, you know, because you obviously do a lot of things, but where did you start your professional career?
Okay, it was in the mid-90s.
Okay. So
I was racing for quite a number of years. For about 11 years, I was racing motocross pretty much full time. And I just had a lot of injuries from a very, very young age. You know, they allow me to make a lot of involuntary noises now as I get older. Yeah. I blame the injuries anyway. And it was then I started seeing a lot of specialists, and it wasn't until I started going through physio that I was alleviated of the pain that I was dealing with, specifically in my back from motocross. And that's when I thought, okay, I need to start weight training more. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to read more about it. And then I found that I was able to retain that content more because I'm enjoying what I'm doing and using myself as that lab rat. So I decided to go to college for 3 years to study like international health and sports therapy because I really wanted to learn more about it and I wanted to get out of Wales.
Sure.
Because after I gave up motocross, my identity was motocross, and I was addicted to adrenaline. I just wanted that adrenaline. So once I gave up motocross, now I'm seeking that adrenaline in drugs, partying, alcohol. I was going off the rails. So I found that actually going to the gym now relieved me of a lot of the pain that I was dealing with, that I was trying to mask with drugs and alcohol. And I was getting like an endorphin rush from it as well. So, that really did help with, not the rehab, just on the body, but with the mind as well. And that ticket then with my international qualifications, I went and worked on cruise liners for 8 months, out of Fort Lauderdale. And then I went to Australia. I was doing personal training there.
How he says it so casually. I'm doing motocross. Now I'm on cruise. Now I'm in Australia. No, it's awesome because you're casually saying it as I'm picturing you going around the globe. Yeah. Right. I keep waiting for you to be like, now I'm in America.
yeah.
So at some point you obviously transitioned from being in kind of exercise physiology or sports training into bodybuilding. Is that how that happened, or did you?
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk me through that?
So in '99, I decided I'm going to compete in a bodybuilding show because I'm definitely an all or nothing kind of character. And I thought, okay, I have to give myself a sense of urgency and a goal to work towards to help me propel my goals faster. I never really liked the bodybuilding aspect of being on stage, oiling up in posing pants, it was quite embarrassing. But I like the journey. I like the process of creating this discipline and this resilience inside myself. Because, like I said, I can go off the rails, or I used to be able to go off the rails pretty quick. So I have to be more strict with myself than I generally would with my clients, for instance. And so I decided to compete in a bodybuilding show in '99. I had no idea there was such a thing as drug-tested and untested shows. I was quite naive to it, and I went in an untested show, and I managed to get second place. I was the smallest there, but I was absolutely shredded because I didn't know anything about bodybuilding. I went on 0 carbs for 8 weeks. Like, I was friggin' hallucinating at the end. I remember going to an ATM and the ATM giving me money, and I'm thanking the ATM, and there's someone in the line looking at me. And I'd drive past my home and I'd be all over the place, But I got in good shape. Yeah. So I decided then I was going to continue down the bodybuilding path with that sense of urgency. So I continued competing in natural bodybuilding shows after that, drug-tested shows. And my last show was in 2009. 2008, I competed in a natural world bodybuilding championships, and I represented Australia in that. And I got second place, missed it by 1 point. And then I got my last show, I actually competed here because I was in Boise now. So there was the Idaho championships. I won that one. And I just realized that I'd always go into a form of depression after a show because I'm so disciplined and scheduled and focused. And I'm in bed at this time, waking up at this time, these meals. And then you finish a show, it's like, okay, now what do I do? And I'd go into a deep depression. So I decided, I'm going to give this up now.
So stick on that for a second. What do you think there's a lot of correlation with that in society? Because, we just did a nonprofit event to raise money for depression, anxiety, particularly youth, right? And a lot of suicide prevention focus there. But how do you think there's something within that society's running into?
Oh, for sure. There's no doubt about it. It's coming from several areas that we didn't always deal with years and years ago. Thankfully, men are speaking up a little bit more about it now because we're the alpha male and testosterone filled. We shouldn't talk about that. It shows our vulnerabilities, but we're able to do so now. But now there's so much more pressure. You look online, you compare yourself to others. And, I don't want to get a little bit too woo-woo about this, but, our environment has changed a lot. Our microbiome is changing a lot. So the hormones that are being produced from our gut can lead to chemical responders in our brain, and they're not always good responders that make us feel good. So there's a lot of dysmorphia from various functions, whether it be physical or mental.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So, kind of getting back into your kind of journey. So you were a bodybuilder, and then at some point you said that you had some experience with photography and writing. Did that come after the bodybuilding, or was that kind of all a part of your journey?
It was part of my journey. So I started off when I moved to Australia just after I'd worked on a cruise liners. I met a girl on a cruise liners, and she was going back to Australia. I was like, hey, I'll come. And I'll check that place out. And I started doing training just, as a personal trainer, just in people's homes. So I was a mobile trainer.
Yeah.
I trained people in the park. I trained people on all the beaches around Sydney, and I'd do the same thing as what you did, Shane. I'd go surfing in between clients. It's phenomenal. I was living a life. And then I made the terrible mistake of purchasing a gym, because now I'm working all sorts of hours. I had loads of overheads. And I'm doing two things in there. So I was doing kickboxing while I was in Australia. So then I started teaching Muay Thai in this studio that I had on one side, and I was doing transformation. So I didn't offer like just personal training, only transformations on the other side. So you could sign up for 12 weeks or 18 weeks, because I wanted those before and after pictures, and I wanted that sense of urgency from my clients. But after a while, I was like, you know what? I want to reach out to more people. How can I get to more people? I don't know how to write. I know I'll buy Merriam-Webster's book on journalistic writing, and I'll teach myself how to write.
Just like your dad.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome.
And then after submitting content, I realized that these editors would have to find a photographer to get pictures to accompany the editorial. So I thought, well, hey, I could get paid for this as well. I'll get a camera and I'll teach myself photography to accompany these content pieces. And my content started getting published around the world. And then I started flying over to the US to cover the Arnold Classic and the Mr. Olympia in Vegas and Columbus. And that's when I realized, because I remember when I was in Wales, looking at the magazine, seeing people in Venice, California, while I'm choking down my dry tuna and baked potatoes, going, I want to be there. You see the guy with the abs and all these chicks and palm trees. I'm like, there's no palm trees here.
It's raining.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be there. So that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to sell this gym. I'm going to go over there without a job. But I'm going to try my best to get a contract under Joe Weider, when, rest in peace, when he was around. So I moved over, and it took me 6 months of just consistently sending in content. I got to know the other people that are working for Weider Publications by being in Venice, California. And that annoyance from me eventually got me a contract as a photographer and a writer for Weider Publications that had Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazines. And, I was now in the Mecca, and I absolutely loved it, because I was really deep into covering bodybuilding. I really like being behind the scenes and covering exactly how I saw these characters.
Awesome.
Sure, because they're obviously a little bit different than they portray outwardly, right? I imagine.
Yeah,
and it's a little bit of a show to some extent. For
sure, and just to fast forward a couple of years, I started my own magazine 2 years later called Caged Muscle, because I wanted to have both bodybuilding and MMA in it, because I was into MMA, and it was called Cage Fighting back then. And I wanted something very different, because I noticed the content that I was submitting to magazine was getting watered down, getting diluted, getting edited, and so was the photography. They wanted the sunglasses, the fake, sweat and whatever. And I wasn't about that. It's like, if I want obscenities in this content, there's going to be obscenities. So I decided to publish my own magazine for a couple of years. Didn't make any money of it. Probably lost money.
Isn't that funny?
what are you saying?
Nothing.
We own a magazine publication.
Someone else had that same idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes to it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm no good at marketing. I put my hands up. I'm not into marketing. I love content. And I love putting the content. And it was just very fulfilling. So I was doing a lot of work, including for bodybuilding.com and freelancing for a lot of magazines, just so I could put a roof over my head and put out this publication. And I think, a lot of people put out content to expect that immediate ROI, but I just loved that. And I think people need to do it for the passion and the purpose, because later on that got me the recognition from the guys at bodybuilding.com, because I could see, this guy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, because you were being authentic. There's something about being authentic that people really gravitate to. And the cool part about what you said is you didn't have a time frame on it. You know what I mean? You were like, well, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. And you're like 1 month in, 2 months in, 6 months in, and you're just going. It's interesting how often people have a time frame on success, opposed to, no, I'm just going to be successful.
No, it's going to happen at some point.
See, I actually believe in time frames because I think it's a lot like your story about really scheduling out your day and having a kind of routine. When I was in the military, and that was the big thing that I learned, because I was just like you, where I couldn't really assimilate thought and focus on something. And then when something was over, then I'd get bored and not know what to do next. And so when I learned routine, I realized that routine, even if you can't achieve something right away, like like success, right? How do you even define success anyway? Is it money? Is it success? Is it fame? I mean, what is that? I mean, I don't know, but I will say that that young people having that aspiration and then setting small chunks of milestones in their way allows them to achieve it. Yeah, that's what I believe, right? Just like you did.
Which I agree. Like on commitments and having that set, but then I also believe in not having a time frame on the true outcome. Yeah. Like if you really want to be something, like he didn't say I have to be this in a month. He says, I'm going to be that. And then within that, you have your goals and commitments and milestones along the way. Yeah. So I fully agree on that.
Yeah. So, okay. So you kind of transition, you're doing this. At some point, you decided to utilize social media to kind of leverage your voice. When did that happen?
Definitely on Facebook. It was around 2010. Because I remember a person working at bodybuilding.com, Crystal Matthews, saying, you need to have a fan page on Facebook. I'm like, fan page? What are you, freaking idiot? I'm not gonna have a fan page. Anyway, she helped me build this fan page because now at this time, around 2010, I've moved. I'm still the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com, but because I was the only person in the offices that was competing at a relatively high level, Ryan wanted me in front of the camera doing various video trainers where somebody, or the viewers, would follow me go through a 12-week transformation like every single day. Like you're going to follow what I eat every day. You're going to see my training every day. So after about 12 weeks, I wanted to kill the camera, men, and women, because I'm fucking there from the moment I wake up to when I go to bed, But it turned out to be a huge hit because people could see my ups and downs. Like, I think I had pneumonia through that first video series, but I was like, well, I can't stop training. I'm going to continue going. That was definitely my mentality then.
That's a good thing, though. I think, because, you mentioned this whole pressure that social media puts on people earlier. And I think that that's a big component of it, right? When you're at your fittest, people only see you at your fittest. When you're struggling and you're going through your phases, people need to know that you're a human being too.
You have to show your vulnerabilities. Yeah. And I had no choice but to show my vulnerabilities. And I continue to do quite a lot of those video series, 4 weeks to shred and muscle building videos. And I have got away from bodybuilding and started getting more into hybrid athleticism. So started doing video series on me getting ready for an Ironman and then an ultra marathon and stuff like that. So with that, it's not that I'm a better trainer than anyone else. It was just that people could follow something every single day and not look to themselves and say, oh, my position is unique, or I'm in a unique situation. I can't do this because of this. They could see that, there was definitely a lot of cards stacked against me, as there are with most people. So that gave him the opportunity to go, okay, he's doing this, I can do it too. Like I did another video series where I tore my lat, but I was like, well, I'm not going to stop now, but I'm going to train around it and show people how they can train around a possible injury. It shouldn't be an excuse to go back to the drawing board and get fat.
Yeah. Well, it's our excuse. You just took it away. So we were just talking about that in there about our excuse.
We were talking about that. So I really struggle. Like regular training is a hard thing, especially when I started having kids. And I used to do it a lot. It was a big thing that I loved doing. But I found that sports actually motivated me to do that, right? Because when you're sucking wind or you're weak when you're playing sports, it's almost like that, it's checking your man card a little bit.
Yeah. Especially when your friends are making fun of you. Isn't that what happened?
Well, they weren't making fun of me. They were literally telling me, are you okay?
So they were concerned.
Yeah, they were really legitimately concerned, which made it worse. but that said, I think that there is some motivating factor to kind of incorporating the two into your lifestyle. It's really a lifestyle, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. No doubt about it. It is a lifestyle now for me where my identity was associated one thing, and that was motocross. Then after motocross, I forgot to mention, I was racing downhill mountain biking for a while.
Of course you were.
And
that's almost more sketchy, in my opinion.
Oh, it was, man. I ended up on like fence stakes and stuff like that. And then my identity was all bodybuilding. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to have some versatility within my life. So that's when I started doing more endurance sports. Sure. And I thought, okay, so, I had an injury where I separated both my AC joints downhill mountain biking, tore my rotator cuff when I was, what was that now? That was motocross. Oh, no, it wasn't motocross. That was surfing. But then
Well, you did surfing, really?
yeah, I because it took me into basically the beach. You know, the tide comes out and it dumped me at the bottom, and
Oh,
you know,
just
I
hit
got
hard,
flipped
yeah.
over, and I could hear it underneath the water. It was crazy. So that's when I thought, well, at least I can swim, because swim was a great form of rehab. So I thought, okay, lower body, I can run, I can bike, I'll do an Ironman, and that was great because now my identity become quite versatile. So if I lose something, I can still gain something, you know. So it's always sidestepping, you know, and that's why, you know, and I use what was deemed as a disadvantage in school. Teachers would always say on my report card, they'll tell my parents, like, Kris is so easily distracted. He's daydreaming, he's distracted. So I use that distraction to my advantage now, and I use the daydreaming to my advantage. You know, I can swim all day. You know, and just switch off. It's fine.
That's super unique, because when I was training for the marathon, I remember I'd go and all of a sudden I'm several miles into my run.
Yeah.
You know, you're 10 miles into the run. I've never thought about that. Like sometimes I can run or work out at a higher pace for a longer time because I'm like not
They're just
there.
out there with the boonies. But, you know, what are we told in school? That's a disadvantage.
Yeah.
You know, you're stupid or whatever. And, you know, we tend to listen to that, and it scars us for a while. And it's not until we reach adulthood, and it doesn't happen to all of us, where we're like, oh, okay, I can use that to my advantage now, you know.
Right.
So I'm very easily distracted. So when I read books, I usually read about 3 or 4 at the same time. I pick up one and go, I'm not in the mood for that. I'll pick up another one.
That's super interesting. So I had to discover that same way. Like it's hard for me to go front to back on a book. Now, Kris, you might be able to, but I have to read 3 or 4 at a time.
Yeah.
And then also I have to break down the chapters. So if a chapter doesn't intrigue me, I don't even read the chapter. I skip it. So within the books, I bounce chapter to chapter, and then I'll dive into a specific chapter, and then I'm like, I'll dive into that because that's what I want to gain the information from. It's really difficult for me to go front to back on any book. And I think that's why I struggle. I was a really bad student. Not very good at all. like I mean, they're like, read the whole thing. I'm like, oh gosh.
Well, all books are useless really, unless you apply them, of course.
Yeah.
And you just take the bits that's applicable to your own book that you're trying to write for yourself in life, you know. And that's what I do the same thing. I'll try to, unless it's something like a James Patterson book, you know. I can't miss a chapter there. I don't know what the hell's going on. So I'll do the books like, you know, the Dr. Joe Dispenzas or whatever, usually in the morning or in the daytime, and then in the evening it's something like a novel, or, you know, something that's a little bit more relaxing. It's not getting my brain firing in the evening.
Which is so funny because he brought up how he didn't like education. Like our conversation
right
goes
away.
like, he's like, I don't like education at all. Okay, tell us about your whole day.
So Shane knows this, but my fiance has a kind of a phrase that she uses, and everybody always goes, uh-oh, when she says it. And it's, I have a question. And you're like, oh my God, something's coming and it's not going to be good. But I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
It's good though. So you're distracting me. See, this is already happening.
Hey,
3
stay on
distracted
focus. On
people.
what chapter are we on?
So Jesus. Thank you very much. Where I was going to go with this was pivot, change direction. When you decided that you wanted to sell the gym, you obviously probably kind of aligned your interests and said, okay, what do I want in terms of my lifestyle? I'm going through that right now, and I've seen Shane over here just somehow just kind of figured that out all on his own with, you know, although you work a lot, you've been able to kind of balance that lifestyle component.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my question to you is, going through that process, we're owning a gym and having to work all that time, and then kind of transforming into this other kind of lifestyle, almost like a lifestyle business. At least that's how I perceive it. How are you able to create that life balance and still be able to achieve your objectives?
I have to work at it constantly. You know, in order for me to bring happiness to myself, I have to work at it constantly. Some people are, you know, naturally happy. People, you know, fit naturally into a lifestyle that is suitable for them. Other people have to work at it, and I have to work at it constantly every single day. And that could be starting off with, you know, meditation, inviting positivity, getting out some sunlight in the morning, grounding myself. When I'm eating a meal, I'm not distracted. I'm focused on being grateful for that meal, the texture, the look at it, the color, what it went through to get onto my plate. And that's what I have to do every single day, every day, gratitude, because you talked about, what is success earlier. For me, it's content, gratitude, and happiness. There was a time where I was like, I want money, I want to retire at this age or whatever. But then as we get a little bit older, we realize, okay, so I reached that milestone, and I don't feel any different. And I'm still trying to push for the next one harder than the last. Where does this end? So I find just working at it, like you guys know that I went on a silent retreat just before Christmas it was like 12 days. Just doing things like that intermittently helps me, and taking micro breaks. So usually, I used to wait and go, okay, I'm going to go on a holiday a couple of times a year or whatever. Now I'm like, okay, I can't do that. I have to have micro breaks. So if that means going to Ketchum for the weekend, or going to a cabin, or flying somewhere just for a long weekend, just to spend some time with myself or with my wife or with the dog or whatever, I just have to take that break.
Sure.
And just be present. One of the reasons why I read is not just for the education, is to train my brain to be focused.
Your journey's super unique. Like, as we keep talking every time, it's like, well, when I was mountain biking, you know what I mean? It's just like the mortar man over here, over there is military service. Out of all these unique experiences, and that's what's really awesome, how you can be impactful. You're authentically really unique. You're a creative. You've lived in many journeys. What do you think is probably the most impactful message about your story to other people?
Oh, wow, you're coming up with some doozies today, aren't you? The most impactful, I'd say, about my story is, it's resilience. I don't consider myself resilient until I look back on some of the things that I have been resilient against, So, I train myself for that as well, because, this may sound cliche, because people say, yeah, well, motivation, I try to motivate myself. And how do you stay motivated? I'm not a motivated person. I've just created resilience through discipline. And I practice discipline every single day. Whenever I feel that I'm getting a little bit of soft, or I'm getting contorted by society in one way or the other, I just practice my resilience even more. I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. I don't care if I go to bed I usually go to bed at 7:30 in the evening or midnight. I'm getting up at 4. And, I'm training at a certain time. I'm never hitting that snooze button. I'm always having an ice bath every single day, particularly on the days that it's cold and snowing. And, I'm getting used to doing shit that I don't want to do on the days that I don't want to do it, because I know a time is going to come when there's things that I don't want to do, and it's going to face challenges. So I'm just trying to stack the wins. So when I'm, weight training now, I'm not trying to get big. That's gone. That was many, many years ago when I was competing. But I'm still trying to stack up the wins and be harder to kill. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I try to enforce onto a lot of my clients now. The reason why they're out of shape, it's not because so much of society, the food being marketed to, genetics, it's because they become easy prey, and they're allowing themselves to get eaten up by society.
Well, it's really easy for you to quit once, and that leads into a habit, right? I think most people at some point are healthy at some point in their life, and then they make a decision not to for a couple times, and then that turns into a week and a month, and they look back and go, oh my God, I have a huge hill to climb.
Yeah, and I think it's just that's a problem. People look at this massive story. You said that you stepped away from the gym when you had the kids. Well, don't look about getting back into the gym. Maybe just do 20 minutes of exercise at the home before the kids get up. And you just got to retrain these neural pathways, much like what Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks about in his book. You have to retrain those habits, because we are habitual. And if we have bad habits, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get back into the easier habits. So let's just replace a small one with another one. Maybe that's normal Coke with Diet Coke. That's not much better.
Yeah.
But it's still a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I'm motivated to get back in the gym.
Just don't rely on motivation, man.
Well, I feel bad about myself. 4 a.m. I'm like 7.
My
8
friends
o'clock,
being
I feel good.
My friend's being concerned about my health is the general direction.
Yeah, that was funny.
We're with Kris Gethin. Appreciate you coming in. And it was really kind of inspiring, kind of learning about your journey. And we look forward to hearing more about you as time goes on.
Let's do it. It'd be really
All
well
right.
to.
Cool. Well, this is Kris and Shane with UrbanLink Media. We run a digital marketing company and a full service digital marketing company, along with a publication called UrbanLink Magazine. You can check that out on the internet. It's called UrbanLinkMagazine.com. All right. Thank you.
I'm ready to play now. Put me in the game now. I came here to prove it. I'm ready to do it. I can't be afraid.